Hello everybody, Circus Fritz here. This video is my journey on making quilts from my cloth diapers. Now, this is not, I repeat, not an instruction video on how to make quilts. I am not a seamstress, I am not a sewer or any of that. If you want to see the videos that I used for making my quilts, I will send either a link down below or wherever the thing you're supposed to put. I have no idea. So welcome to my journey. Here we go. The reason why I started this project is because I wanted some way to save and hold on to the cloth diapers because I didn't want to throw them away. I just felt bad doing that. But I also didn't want to just cut them up in a way and put them in like a frame, because to me that didn't seem functional enough, and I wouldn't know how to frame them in a way. So I figured the best way would be a quilt, because it's something the kids would use all the time and they can save them and use them for however long they choose to save and use them. The most tedious part, I'm sorry if you hear a bunch of running around, that's my children upstairs. I'm in the basement like a little troll hiding from them. Anyway, cutting out the elastic was the most tedious part, because some of the styles were a little thinner than others, and I had to cut as little of the elastic as possible to save the fabric. Because when I went to the store to get supplies, I ended up getting a 4x10 ruler, and that's what I used just to cut out the pattern, just for simplicity's sake. So in this next clip that you will see is where I start to cut it all out. Now, cutting it was tricky because the fabric is stretchy and very thin. So I had to make sure I held it down really tight and hope that it didn't move, because I needed roughly the same shape in each one. And this one wasn't too bad, just again tedious as well. Now, this project I had been brainstorming and planning for a bit before COVID-19 happened and my state of Michigan shut down in mid-March. So it just worked out that I had this project planning and coming up, and now I had nothing to do. So that worked out well, which was good because this consumed my entire life. And this took a few months to do, mostly because I just, took breaks in between, and then I had to wait for some fabric to be ordered because everyone was doing projects at the same time, apparently. So I'm laying out the pattern for each quilt, and I wanted to lay it out in a way where the diapers that were only used by one kid versus the other were in the proper quilt. But the most of my cloth diapers were used by both my children, which is the beauty of cloth diapers, is they last 1 to maybe 3 or 4 years, depending on how often you use them and how good of quality the fabric and elastic is. And I had to lay them out and then, line them up and then stack them in a way where I would remember what order they were in, which thankfully the videos that I watched helped out with that, because I had no clue what to do as far as quilting goes. Now, I've sewn before, like just a handful of times, so I knew the basics, but as far as quilting goes, I just watched some videos and hope for the best. But here are my fabric pieces. As you can see, the 2 piles. Here are my fabric pieces in columns, so I would know which one was what. Now, when I started sewing, what would happen is the fabric would start bunching together, or one would slide up and the other one would stay still and not move at all, which would cause lots of problems for me, and it was really frustrating because I couldn't figure out what to do. So I asked some folks online. A few people thought it was a tension problem, and it wasn't that, but my grandma Pat suggested that I
use starch to stiffen the fabric since the fabric was very thin, which in retrospect I didn't really need to do, because what I figured out was one side of the fabric pieces have a plastic film over them for waterproofing, because, diapers. And so that was causing them to stick and whatnot. So what I decided to do is to use, I think it's called Stitch Witchery or Stitch Magic, or I'm not sure what it's called, but it's basically like a little piece of like polyester fabric thing where you just iron it together and it like glues or stitches it together, which worked out really well. Now, I'm sure some of you quilters are clutching your pearls right now, because traditionally what you're supposed to do with quilting is when you put the layers together, you are supposed to iron the little extra pieces out flat and like separate them and flatten them out. However, the quilting video that I followed said it's okay, just do one side versus the other, especially since it's just a very basic rectangle pattern. If I was doing more complicated stuff like stars and whatnot, then yes, I would need to do that to make sure it was super flat. However, I didn't need to do that, so that helped me significantly, and it made my sewing a lot easier to do. Now that the fabric has been stitched together, it went by a lot quicker and easier sewing those pieces together, which was good, because then I knocked out huge chunks of it each for multiple nights in a row at this point. And here I am sewing the columns, rows. I'm pretty sure it's columns when it goes left to right. I'm pretty sure. I'm sure you quilters are laughing at me with my lack of knowledge, but that's okay. So, this part was exciting because I could start to see the blanket essentially come together. However, you may have noticed that the pattern did not make a very large blanket, and I wanted a twin XL size quilt, so that way the kids could use it into adulthood. So what I decided to do while I was ordering fabric for the whole backing of my quilt was I just ordered extra fabric colors to put on each side of the pattern, so it would make one big piece. And here's my child jumping in and saying hi. So just sewing them together. Now, because of the large chunks on it, what I had to do was when I was basting them together, I had to draw lines with some fabric pencil, just so I would know exactly where to sew when I was sewing all the layers together. So here's me just measuring my life away. This took a stupid amount of time to do, just because I had very short row or very narrow rows, which was oh so fun. And of course, trying to fend off cats walking over my fabric, that was great too. And then sewing together took me a minute to really get sewing the basting together, but by the time I got to the second quilt, I went by a lot smoother. But you won't see that because I lost all the recording of the second quilt and the trim, making the trim and putting on the trim. I lost all that. I accidentally deleted it. So instead, here's a video of me lying down having an existential crisis over it. I mean, not just over that, just the whole being in quarantine for so long and the whole police brutality and violence going on and the marches, and frustrated because I couldn't go to them because my child is high risk, so couldn't do any of that. But that's okay. You just get to see me lying here having an existential crisis instead of more sewing stuff. What videos I do have, though, is me sewing on the trim onto the quilt, which is exciting because now I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and it's almost over. So close, so goddamn close to getting it done. At this point, once I got the trim, after that I just was going for it and doing some sewing a little bit every day at this point. To give you a time frame, I started this project mid-March. So by the time I'm getting the trim on here, it's about mid-June. So I am beyond ready to get this done. And the reason why this took so long is just because I took a lot of breaks in between. Part of it was waiting for fabric to come in. Part of it was prepping and getting my full front yard garden started. And this is June, and for June I decided to do a different Pride makeup look every single day, so I took some time to pre-record all that, or pre-do all that and then take photographs, because I didn't record it because I'm just too lazy for that. However, after the trim is sewn on with machine, it was time to move on to the hand sewing part, which was exciting because, one, I could move that damn sewing machine off my dining room table and give it back to my BFF Kalika. I love you so much. Thank you for letting me borrow this for so long. Oh my God. And also shout out to Emma for letting me borrow your nice camera. But the hand sewing part was nice because I could just sit on the couch and hang out with my kids, or just hang out and watch my trash television that I watch occasionally, or just rewatch Golden Girls, which was lovely because I love Golden Girls so much. They are the best. Now, back when I was having issues with the fabric sewing together, I had to take out the thread, and it tore some of the fabric pieces, which I thought would be fine, but with the final touches, I noticed that some spots looked a little questionable, and I was worried it might come undone. So what I decided to do was cut out little pieces of hearts and just sew over them, and I just used big obvious stitches and just stitch over those spots. And I also decided to make labels and name each quilt so we would be able to look back at this specific time period.
So here is one of the final products. Ta-da! I did it. You can see, where's that one? Right here. See right there? Can I focus? Focus. There you go. The little heart that I patched on as well. All the little pieces. The kids absolutely loved their quilts. And it actually turned out not bad, all things considered. So the other quilt. As you can see, they both came out pretty good, all things considered. Where's that? Here's a little heart right here. If I can focus. There you go. Yep. Here is the label, if you can see that. Yep, there we go, there's the focus. To commemorate the time period in this very unique time in history. So never, ever making quilts again. I never want to see a sewing machine again. This was effing awful. I know there's so many people out there who are quilters and absolutely love to quilt and are all about quilting. I don't have time for that. It was so time consuming and tedious. It's just not for me. Not for me. Like, it was fun. I learned how to take in my own pants, actually, which was a really nice quick little thing to do, but overall, I don't think I'm ever going to do this again. So, hats off to you. See you later.